brought you here? Like, what made you want to come to this position?
I was invited, literally. So I was at a National Football Foundation meeting. I was at the Grand Hyatt DFW, and I've been there enough. And I was thinking last week as I was preparing for my remarks, like, where was it that I was invited? I remember the encounter with the Texas High School Coaches Association leadership. And having been in the Southland Conference for 11 years, we've had a relationship with Texas A&M since 2012, adding to our Texas and westward relationships. I was more than happy to accept the invitation. More honored to be invited and happy to accept the invitation. Hopefully I was interesting.
How important is this thing to the SEC and its future?
Well, they're all important. All what will be 12. Having lived in Texas, and I moved to Allen when it was 17,000, and now I was just told it's over 200,000. I remember when Frisco was a flashing yellow light, a Ford dealership, a Mexican restaurant, and a water tower, and now you look at what Frisco, Texas is, and that's representative of I think the economic power, the opportunity. But that's not, we've got that across our states. I think part of what we've seen in the growth of the Southeastern Conference is not attributable to any one thing, but one of the factors has been the demographic shift and the economic opportunities provided across our state. And Texas certainly has both of those factors.
Brent Swarnaman, Houston Chronicle. You saw it up close, Greg, living here, the importance of high school football in the state and the passion for it. You just speak to that.
I shared, I was a freshman at Laterno College, as it was then known, in the fall of '82, and went to a part of a Longview high school football game. That was my introduction to Texas high school football. So I moved from Central New York, and had been to Skaneateles Central School, Jordan Elbridge, I could count Auburn High School, and then you go to Longview, and they had, I couldn't even tell you, probably go back, a really highly recruited running back at the time, and it was wow. Well, it was a great education for me, great introduction. And I lived in Allen as they were building the football stadium, but had lived in Plano for a while. My Southland Conference experiences. I've been to a football game in Alto, Texas, believe it or not. I've been to a playoff games on our Southland campuses in Huntsville and in Nacogdoches. So I've had this direct familiarity with Texas high school football, but understand I lived in Louisiana, now live in Alabama, and again, high school football is a big deal across this region. And that's why I've been very clear about our respect for high school football, and I've expressed concern about more migration of colleges into Friday night. We play, just to be fully transparent, Black Friday afternoon game, Friday after Thanksgiving has been on CBS. That will continue. Last year in Tallahassee, Florida played Florida State. We communicated up front and asked the universities to seek really clearance from the Florida State High School Athletic Association. But I'll go back to my Central New York roots. There are a couple high schools that were the powers back in my younger days that now either don't have programs or have one combined program between two high schools, yet we've got colleges playing on Friday night for TV windows. I think we better think carefully about our impact on high school football. In fact, I encourage even more attention to high school football, what we're doing in recruiting. I was just asked by high school coaches, what am I gonna do about name, image, and likeness migrating into the high school level, the promises being made that aren't verifiable. We have no indication if they're real. That's what's now happening in high school football, and I think there's a continuum of realities that we encounter that have filtered down, and we need to take a step back and think whether it's TV, recruiting, NIL, kind of this transfer mentality about the long-term impacts of our decision making.
There's been a lot of talk about like the calendar, the recruiting calendar. Do you think there needs to be like an adjustment or changes on that?
Yes,
yeah,
very much so. I went out, well, let's go back. I sat in locker rooms at bowl games with our head coaches when they're worried about coaching, and I'd have 30-minute conversations with some, not everyone, about what December's like for them right now.
Yeah.
You have coaching decisions, head coach and assistant coach, you have signing day, you have the transfer portal, you have bowl games, and you have a playoff. And that playoff will have more December activity, not to mention the regular season concluding in the start of, or the conference championship games. One of the learning experiences from those conversations then in January, February, March, and our Destin meeting is not only is December miserable for football coaches, April, May, June are now miserable because we put so much intensity upon them. We do have to think about the transfer structure. We introduced a 60-day window. It used to be a 365-day window. I believe that's too long. One of the arguments was if you shorten it, you create too much mental stress for young people. I've watched mental stress created at the end of that portal window. We've got a lot of young people who enter with promises or beliefs that don't have opportunities. We need to learn more about that. Those are elements. When we go into an expanded playoff, I don't think for a moment we should have an early signing period while our best college football teams are engaging in playoff games that week. I don't think that can continue. So yes, we do need to change. And we've made some progress on looking at the full scope of the year. I've been an advocate from the moment I was on the subcommittee that came up with the 12-team playoff, that part of the outcome needed to be an entire look at the year of college football. Recruiting, practice, strength and conditioning, playing games, how we do things in a modern era has to be at the forefront of our mind.
Greg, Parker Reed from Fox 44 in Waco. We heard a little bit at Big 12 meetings, especially from Mike Gundy, about his discontentment with conference realignment, kind of the rivalries that might go by the wayside because of it. But then you see Texas and Texas A&M renewing the rivalry. What are your thoughts on just kind of keeping those historic rivalries alive and what conference realignment?
The Southeastern Conference has a track record of accommodating historical rivalries. You know, Georgia Tech left, and we have a Georgia Tech-Georgia game every year. So we've got a track record of facilitating those in-state rivalries. Sometimes, and you've seen it here, those decisions drive people away. Uniquely, the Southeastern Conference expansion restores rivalries. Obviously, Texas A&M and Texas, we play next fall, but the Arkansas-Texas series, having been there in 2004 in Fayetteville, Arkansas, I saw more private planes in the airport than I've seen in my life, and I flew commercial not last year, year before when they played, and pretty exciting experience in 21. Oklahoma, Missouri, you know, the wrestling programs have a storied level of competition, but we'll now have a quarter of the old Big Eight in the SEC, which people wouldn't have predicted 30 or 40 years ago, but we have an opportunity to restore some of those really special games. And there are really two components. One, we've honored people working to play, and I'll again use Georgia Tech and Georgia. Georgia Tech left the SEC, yet they still play Georgia. South Carolina left Clemson, they still play, and we facilitate that along with our conference colleagues. And so we can facilitate that if people want it to happen. We're also proud about the rivalries restored, knowing there's an impact on others from those decisions.
Two more questions.
Travis Brown with the Eagle.
You get like bonus points for making sure I really knew you were both times.
Following the rules. The newest trend in NIL seems to be the collective associated with the booster club. Is this a healthy step in that field, or do you think that is something that could be concerning, not only from a administrative but a punitive kind of standpoint?
When we met in Destin, one of the themes was we have to draw lines between boosters and recruiting and collectives and recruiting. That's been a theme from the beginning. Understand, in an extension of your earlier question, my observation, I think college athletics observation was not to just stop NIL in 2019, but the worst way to do it is on a state-by-state basis. I think we've verified that observation is accurate. Again, go back to our young people saying there has to be we have to draw clear lines, and part of the challenge around boosters and recruiting activity is those lines should have still been clear, but they've been blurred. There also is an expectation up front that there be clear, transparent, actual name, image, and likeness economic activity taking place. I think there are questions that have to be answered about what's true and what's not true in any of these relationships.
Last one.
Yeah, Greg, at Big 12 Media Days, members of Big 12 administration made some interesting comments about Oklahoma and Texas and the negotiations going over the SEC, even alleging at one point, like, Oklahoma was a little bit more hesitant than Texas entering the SEC. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the negotiations that took place, and maybe pull back the curtain, how have communications with Joe Castiglione and Chris Conte been, and what's been the enthusiasm to this point from those programs?
Let me be as clear as I can. I'm not familiar with those observations, so I'll take your recitation. That's fiction. Period. That's fiction. The outreach was from both equitably. It was done at a presidential level, directly and clearly. And Joe Harris and Jay Hartzell were both equally clear about their interest in joining the Southeastern Conference. They, as I recall, said we watched how you've led, which was a compliment to me, how our group has made decisions and how we function, and they want to be a part of that. Clear as I can be.
All right, guys, thanks.